Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Reality Check Podcast. I'm joined by Harrison. I am federally unemployed Marcus and Raul Mas. Tonight, we will be touching on two topics. We will be touching on the review of the Gaza Peace Plan that is unfolding as we speak and the fallout of the government shutdown. And we'll take them in that order. I'm going to go ahead and start with Raul because he is definitely in our group the person with the most exposure, having recently been in Israel. So, Raul, could you please get us started?
So, listen, my thoughts, as I kind of heard this whole thing start to get a head of steam, right, over the weekend. Um, Number one, it's amazing how much the world can change in such a short period of time, right? I mean, if you think about it, tonight's a Tuesday night. On Thursday night, last Thursday, we had heard that there was, the possibility of an agreement that Hamas had accepted to return the hostages, but it still wasn't a done deal, and that was probably Wednesday, Thursday, right? Now, literally, just a couple days later, Trump has flown over there. It seems everybody in the world flew over there. They signed this agreement. The hostages have been released, except for the bodies of most of the ones that were killed in captivity. Remember, there was 48 of them. 20 live hostages were released. All of them men, no women. Okay, because most of the women that had not been previously released, died in captivity. Probably horrific deaths. But they had 28 dead bodies that they were supposed to get. My understanding is they have four, so there's still another 2 dozen left to go. Um, and all this happened in just a couple of days, and everybody sort of piled on, and this euphoria and the images on in Sunday of the hostages being reunited with their families. I mean, very, very emotional. Um, but then at the same time, we're seeing all these images of Hamas now, executing on the streets of Gaza, their enemies, or the people that squealed on them, or people that they believe to be Israeli spies, whatever. And it's not just that they're executing them, in that brutal fashion, the way they do. They've got them handcuffed and blindfolded, and they put them down on their knees and they shoot them in the back or the head or whatever. Um, but also the fact that once again, in those images, in those plazas where they're basically, carrying out their death sentences, there are literally hundreds of Gazans cheering them on, right? Civilians, supposedly. These are all the innocent civilians. And isn't it amazing that all of these protests to free Palestine have suddenly kind of like come to a screeching halt, right? And now the United Nations is saying, oh, yeah, we got plenty of food, to make sure that everybody's fed for the next 3 months. All of this bullshit that we've been fed, okay, for the past, 2 years or so about a genocide and how innocent the Gazans and 60,000 people killed, and it's all effing bullshit, man. It's what it is. I mean, I really, I'm just amazed that people are either incredibly gullible or they're just, anti-Semites themselves and they just want to, pile on or something. But, I mean, here, in the last 48 hours, the Gaza, the Hamas is back in control temporarily, perhaps. Okay. And what are they doing? They're executing people on the streets and, you know, uh, running around on the back of, pickup trucks with AK-47s. And, they're that you would think they won the war or something, right? Um, so look, I'm not optimistic that this will be a lasting peace. Okay, I think if it's going to be successful, you're going to have a very serious peacekeeping force to go in there to disarm Hamas, to make sure they have no role in the government. And I think all of that's in the peace plan, by the way, right? Um, and part of that Israel insisted that Hamas cannot have any role, right, in the follow-up government. So let's see, of those 20 points that are in that peace plan, how far along we get. And I venture to say you're probably not going to get very far, at least not in the immediate future. You're not going to see much progress.
I wanted to, first of all, look at this. To me, this thing is a debacle. And even it began as a debacle. When you were trading 10 to 1, I'll give you, for one righteous, decent civilian, I'll give you 10 hardened criminals or terrorists. That already was a position of weakness. And then the ultimatum by Trump, you will be wiped out. All hell will be unleashed upon you, et cetera, et cetera. And then at the last second, well, no, let's back off and let's not do that. Let's not kill all the cockroaches. Let's just kill the ones that approach the doorway, the ones that are hiding in the crevices. Let's just leave them alone. That to me, and I wonder how is it that Netanyahu accepted that? Uh, was he held under some kind of duress by Trump, who was promising to maybe tomahawks to Ukraine, but at the same time he wouldn't cut them loose? If this does fizzle, which I believe it will, then like you say, what are they going to do? Does anybody really believe that and I'm going to use a nasty term here, the raghead royalty from the oil producing Arab nations is going to come in there and disarm Hamas? Does anybody really believe that? I don't.
Yeah. Well, look, and I think it would be very difficult for Israel to, go back into Gaza. As we were talking about earlier, the Israeli army is a conscript army. A lot of reservists have been called back and have been fighting practically nonstop for the past 2 years. Their businesses have suffered. Their jobs, whether they worked for themselves or for somebody else. They've had a lot of problems at home. Israel does not have a large standing army. It depends on its conscripts, young soldiers and veterans that they call back. Guys that are in their 50s or 60s and volunteer to go back, but it places an enormous burden on the whole of Israeli society. So I think they've had a taste of what peace looks like. Everybody's really excited, and man, I hope to God that I'm proven wrong. I really do. I'm skeptical, but if there's a point, if there's one thing that I would love to sort of be proven wrong about, it's this. I hope that the peacekeeping force does go in there. I hope that the peacekeeping force, does disarm Hamas and decommissions all their weapons and does all the things that are called for in that peace plan, right? But I just that's not what the history of this conflict teaches us, and we're being asked to sort of forget. Here we are in 2025. This has been going on since 1948. Okay, so it's been going on for what is that, 77 years? Okay, and we're being asked to, okay, now this time it's different. Okay. After the 48 war, the Sinai conflict, the 67 war, the 73 war, the incursion into Lebanon, a gazillion and one small wars, operations that Israel's had to undertake. Remember that they had a phrase, that every couple of years they would have to go back into Gaza to quote unquote, mow the lawn. What did that mean? That meant that Hamas got out of control. They shot some mortars or some rockets, and Israeli troops had to go back in there to blow shit up and teach them a lesson and punish them and, quote unquote, mow the lawn. And it was that attitude, quite frankly, that they had things under control and that they just needed to go in every once in a while and mow the lawn, that, they let their guard down, and October 7th happened. So
there are people who believe October 7th happened on purpose, that they could have had the defensive capacity to have at least detected that, where they were caught with their pants down. And it gets back to what you were a little while ago alluding to, Harrison. I'd like to hear your take on this, that Netanyahu knows that he's got a lot of problems outside of that once he is no longer the prime minister, he's going to be in big doo-doo, basically deep doo-doo, and that the longer this prolongs, the more he sticks around, and he's the wartime consigliere, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I think, of course, as the war loses popular support at home, the wartime leader is going to suffer proportionately. I think we were talking earlier before we started that the numbers were above 60% of Israeli citizens who were growing war weary, and we saw that in the U.S. during the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. I think, well, two things, and you both mentioned the very sad, tragic, and unnerving cyclicality of all this. It's been going on since '48, and it keeps repeating itself. Um, and one of the points that you mentioned, Carlos, uh, the lack of reciprocity, the disproportionality of Israel giving up, 10 times more prisoners than Hamas. But that again is also that's been the case every single time.
Yeah.
Every time there's an exchange, Israel always gives more
Yep.
than they get back. I think there are a couple of things that are different this time, um, and that is I think the Arab nations, and this started with the Abraham Accords, and I give Trump a lot of credit for this. The Arab nations are getting fed up with this. There is a reform Islam movement that is very much in a counterpoint to jihadism, and what they're now looking for is, I think, what in the West we call enlightened self-interest. It goes all the way back to Adam Smith, and since our own war started in 9/11, we thought that the Middle East was incapable of seeing things that way, of sharing our values. But I think that's starting to come around. They would rather have commerce and peace than this constant war and terrorist activity by people that they're caring less and less about. So I agree with you. I don't see Saudi Arabia putting boots on the ground in Gaza to keep the peace. I do see all of them funding the means to keep the peace. And
Funding
if
too, though. What nation would you think would put? Yeah, the Saudis. No way they're going to do that. Those armies look real nice when they do the march for Trump and they follow him around with the McDonald's trailer and all that. That's really cute. And do play the music and the pomp and circumstance. But there's a big difference between that and having to fight this kind of vermin on their turf.
Oh no, I see this as being very thinly analogous because there are a lot of differences. But with Ukraine, I think the U.S. is going to supply the weaponry and the technological capability for Israel to go in and just clean out Hamas if necessary. I mean, everyone's talking about drones now. The U.S. has drones that fire drones. I mean, our Predator drones fire Sidewinder drones that have AI at the edge and can just land right on somebody's doorstep. Uh, so if we're willing to provide that, and the Saudis and their neighbors are willing to pay for it, that's how we're going to clean it up. And I think that Trump has the will to do that. And the other thing I've mentioned is that after being at war with Iran since 1979, we finally had an administration that had the guts to send in the most sophisticated bombers the world has ever seen and smack Iran hard. I wish we had done this 20 years ago, but we finally did it. I think that's shaken them up. And Hamas and their brothers have lost their biggest sponsor. And I think that's going to make a big difference too. So
Marcus, this time,
I'm not saying I'm not all sunshine on this. I say I'm cautiously optimistic rather than a full blown skeptic.
Marcus, your take on this so far?
Uh, I'm skeptical. I think that people are worried about Hamas. Hamas is just a name. it's like Al Qaeda or ISIS. There could always be offshoots to carry that torch, even though the name brand, would be gone. So yeah, that's one possibility. And my take is that for this to work, you really need an active regional power participation. Uh, Whether it's, I know it'll be everybody, the Jordanians, Egyptians, the Saudis, the Arab Emirates, everybody, just to make sure it works. And I there, I don't know, either I see it as more like a fusion center because every one of these countries have a very active security apparatus, and they can be effective to dismantle Hamas, but they have to there have to be an active governance of it. But my one concern is about the unbalanced prisoner exchange, because when you look at October 7th, at least 1,200 were killed, massacred, and I'm sure some of the Israeli IDF captured a number of them. My take is where's the justice for the court? Especially for the families who lost, like pretty much everybody. Where do they get peace and accountability, retribution, justice for it? It just it's like a sour set of grapes in their mouth for that.
And how did Netanyahu make that deal, for God's sake? How did he make that deal? Why?
Why did they make the deal? Because the hostages are just, that's all Israeli society has been able to talk about for the past 2 years. I mean, remember, man, this is a country of 9 million people. Okay. And like, I said this last time we talked about this, man. I mean, everybody in Israel, it's 2 or 3 degrees of separation. They either know somebody, that was kidnapped, that was killed at the Nova Festival. I mean, if you think about it, I forget what the actual numbers are, but if you look at the percentage of people that Israel lost on October 7th, of their population of 9 million, and you take that percentage and you apply it to the United States, okay, of 300 million people or 330 million, and I think it's equivalent to casualties of over 50,000, around 50,000, if not more, right? So imagine that, Mexico crossed over into the U.S. and killed 50,000 people, right? I mean, number one, we'd be going to war with Mexico, no question about it. And those 50,000 people that were killed in San Antonio or across the border in McAllen or whatever, chances are that we might know some of them. Or a friend of a friend or a friend of a cousin of mine, was killed, and we'd all be having these conversations. So that's why they did it. I mean, Israelis value life enormously. It's part of their DNA. It's the complete opposite of Hamas. And, they're willing to go to extraordinary lengths to get their people back. And they know this. I mean, the terrorists have done this time and time again. They've kidnapped soldiers, from their guard posts in order to hold them hostage. And Israel's gone to war to get back 1 or 2 of their soldiers. And in the process, they've given up 1,000 terrorists to get back 1 or 2 soldiers. This is not the first time this has happened.
Well, they gave up Sinwar, who planned the whole thing.
Yes.
To get a
yes,
hostage soldier.
The young Israeli, guard at some post or something.
Yeah.
They snatched them, and they gave up hundreds of terrorists to get them back.
It was part of their strategy.
It explains why so many American Jews are Democrats. I'm sorry, but it's a mental disorder. It's a mental disorder because it's non-survival. It's non-survival. I'm afraid to lose. I value life immensely above all, and every life is precious. So I'll trade 100 to 1. Not only will I do that, but I will let the door stay open so you can keep fucking me in the same way. That's how I see it. I'm sorry, but that's the reality of what they're looking for. We'll just wait around and wishful think and celebrate what we can and wait for the next October 7th.
I just want to add a quick footnote, Raoul, to what you said about how, it's all men that were returned alive. No women were returned alive.
Mhm.
And I just want to emphasize that we say women, that's bad enough, but inclusive in that are young girls.
And babies.
And if anything, yeah, and babies, if anything emphasizes the barbarity of what they did on October 7th, it's that statistic alone, that no females of any age, from adult down to childhood, were spared.
Yeah.
You brought up an interesting point, Carlos, about the Jewish vote in America. I don't know what the demographic breakdown is. I'm just spitballing here, but it seems that the the the, the Israel gets most of its support in the U.S. from evangelical Christians,
Yes.
more than they do from American Jews, which has always been a little puzzling to me. But I think, and this is just a general observation, I could be way off, that practicing Jews, Orthodox Jews, citizens who are Americans who are religiously observant Jews, are more pro-Israel than secular
Yeah.
Jewish
Yes.
people.
Yes,
That
absolutely.
seems to be the breakdown.
Ben Shapiro said, when asked about that, Ben Shapiro said the answer to that nagging question, my fellow Americans, is that most American Jews, which are Ashkenazi Jews, they are liberal first, left wing first, Jewish a distant second.
Yeah, yeah. It's always been kind of a conundrum. Uh, I don't really understand it. I'd love to hear someone from the other side explain that.
No,
In
listen,
sort of,
I think, Carlos is right. I mean, that is in fact, and I've struggled with that over the years as well, right? And we make the assumption that, all Jews here in the U.S. should support Israel. And the truth of the matter is that's not the case. There are a lot of Jews at Columbia University that I'm sure are out there, in those crowds, wanting to free Palestine, right? That's kind of an example, but I'm sure that some are out there, right? But I think I don't know, just I believe that, yeah, the evangelicals are very strong supporters of Israel. Absolutely, the more Orthodox Jews tend to be much closer to Israel as well, right?
right,
Uh,
right,
Even though, ironically, in a lot of those ultra Orthodox Jews, they, up until recently, they didn't serve in the military. They just wanted to study Torah,
right.
and they would have a religious exemption from serving in the IDF. But that has changed because they need the bodies, and they're going to continue to need the bodies. And
Yes.
more importantly, it's the Orthodox Jews that are multiplying like rabbits, and having a lot of military age men, and they're going to need to fight, in the IDF. So
We have a Jewish colleague that practices in Broward, Periodonis, fine young man. He's got a couple of children. He served in the IDF.
mhm.
He served in the IDF. So he gets it. Marcus, any take from you on the Jewish conundrum topic?
No, I'm good. No, I have nothing to say. It's like trying to find logic in a cat. How to know what a cat thinks. You can't. It's hard to fathom. It's like trying to understand what a woman thinks. I don't want to get caught into that.
Mhm.
I'll
Well,
get
it's
lost. I'll get lost. I'll get lost in the fog.
listening to our cat was a lot easier to understand than women. I always knew what she was thinking. Our cat. God
it's
rest
like it's like the look your dog gives you when you try to put him on the phone.
Yeah. What are you doing, Daddy?
Well, I'm hopeful, but I'm just cautiously optimistic. It's still hard for me to get my head around the reaction in the West, both in Europe and in the U.S., in the immediate aftermath of October 7th. October 8th, there was celebration of what had happened. In my own district, they raised the Palestinian flag in the public square, and our congressman, when asked what he thought about it, all he could say was, "It's all Netanyahu's fault," and that shows some kind of
It
moral.
shows how far we've fallen.
Yeah, it shows some sort of moral displacement
Horrible.
in our own country that I think we're going to feel the repercussions of. I'm hoping it's turning around. It seems to be turning around.
Who's the congressman, if you want to say?
No, I don't. I
Moulton?
know. I'm not going to say a word.
Moulton served in the military, but the only thing I've seen on him that showed any evidence of testicles was that he didn't want men, boys, beating up on his girls in sports. That's the only thing he said that isn't loony far left. Moulton.
I didn't say anything.
I'll say it for you. It's all right. I'm in Florida. I'm in the free state of Florida. I want to throw something else out to the three of you. This situation, to me, there's an elephant in the room that we and the rest of the world and as Israelis ignore this elephant at their collective peril. And that is this. If you have a nation that supported, that elected, that tolerated 18 years of Hamas with no elections, and they're already cheering, as you said, and continue to cheer and continue to. The last time I heard a stat, 85% of Palestinians supported Hamas. The only way for that to ever be fixed, God help us, would be a genocide of all Palestinians, period. A genocide. Just vaporize every freaking thing that lives there. And today, with everyone's got a phone, everyone's a journalist. I don't see that happening. I don't see, that would be inconceivable. But unfortunately, I don't see any other way. You can't kill an ideology unless you kill everybody with the ideology.
No, look, it's going to take, for them to, you can't nuke them. I'm sorry, Carlos, but you can't do that. Okay, that's not acceptable behavior in today's world, unfortunately. But this is a problem that has been created. I mean, think about the fact that no other Arab country really wants the quote unquote Palestinians, right?
Nice.
Jordan certainly doesn't want them. I mean, I remember, my first exposure. I'm 68 years old. My first exposure to terrorism, when I really kind of started to become curious about it, was in 1972 with the Munich massacre, right? And it was a Palestinian group called Black September, and the name Black September comes from when King Hussein during the month of September, I think it was in the previous year in '79, threw sent all the Palestinians, back across the Jordan, right? I mean the Jordan River. Told them to get the hell out of Jordan. Wanted to get rid of him because of they tried to overthrow him. So I was 15 years old at the time, right? And then came the '73 war, okay, where the Arab countries again attacked Israel, tried to wipe them off the map, came close to it. And so it's just been one thing after another. And all these, every time they're displaced, this UNRWA, UNRWA is unique because it is a refugee program unlike any other refugee program that the UN manages, because UNRWA is intergenerational. You don't have to be, your grandparents may have fled, back in 1948, but the great grandsons are still receiving compensation and health care and all that stuff under the UNRWA program. I mean, who the hell is still a refugee after, 3 or 4 generations, right? I mean, you adopt to your new country. Palestinians have never done that. They have basically been living off the teat of the UN for decades and shaking down Saudi Arabia and all the wealthy, Arabs of the region. That's what they've been doing. And they hate them. They don't want them. Why does Egypt not take them in? Because, they're part of the Muslim Brotherhood. They want nothing to do with the Gazans. Okay.
The Muslim Brotherhood assassinated Saddam.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Do you guys think, given what you said about the Arab world is growing tired of this fed up, will that maybe translate into squeezing off that teat so it don't drip anymore?
No, that was my point. And that's another reason why I have some degree of optimism about this, is that the Arab League is getting fed up with this, and the UN is not involved. UNRWA, there were literally UNRWA members who participated in the October 7th massacre. That pretty much says all you need to know about the UN. So we're not going to see any powder blue helmets in
You're not.
in Gaza, and that gives me some cause for optimism. And I do believe that the Arab nations at large, for the most part, are getting fed up with this. To your point, Raul, they're just, nobody wants them. During the Cold War, they were the beneficiaries of the Soviet Union's abilities to destabilize the region. Yasser Arafat, who's an Egyptian, not a Palestinian, was on a $1 million a year sinecure from the Soviet Union. I don't know. I'm sure nobody under the age of 25 knows that. But that was a big part of the problem back then.
Yeah. He was on the payroll. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was just to cause as much murder and mayhem as possible. And I think for too long we were hopeful, we were naive. And I think,
that's right, Harrison. That's an element that's not discussed very often. Okay,
right.
But the fact that Arafat and the PLO was being used as part of, the Cold War. Okay,
absolutely.
And it just goes to show that the whole friggin' Palestine thing is a fraud, right? I mean,
yes.
Even Yasser Arafat. I think maybe his mother was from Palestine, but I think his father was Egyptian or vice versa. I think he was born in Egypt. Okay.
Yeah. Well, he was 5.
He forms the Palestinian Liberation Organization.
Yeah.
That's when they started calling themselves Palestinians in the 60s.
He was 5% Egyptian and 95% pederast.
5%.
I thought I'd get a bigger laugh out of that one.
Say that again. I missed it.
He was 5% Egyptian and 95% pederast.
Yeah, but aren't they between goats and little children? That's what they like. That's what happens with the population.
Arafat really did. He liked his, he was a reprehensible, disgusting human being. And yet we gave him safe passage out of Lebanon.
Obama gave
back in 1983. That's how naive we've been, and how much we have tried to placate them and to reach peace. And I think we finally become more realistic. I think the Israelis have, and again, that's my hope for.
And by the way, think about this. The Palestinian Authority, this guy Abbas, who's been there forever. Okay.
Yep.
I don't know if he has a successor in mind, right? I mean, the guy's not going to be around much longer. He's got to be pushing 90 or something. So, if now Hamas is basically, down to a handful of people that are going to be in exile in Turkey or Qatar or whatever, and Abbas passes away, who takes over leadership of the Palestinians in the West Bank? I don't think there is a successor in mind.
Yeah. The West Bank is something we haven't even touched on.
Well, but that's where these prisoners are being released into.
Yeah,
they're not being released into Gaza. They're being released into the West Bank, right?
Right.
So now you've got literally right next to the eternal city of Jerusalem, okay, in the West Bank, all of these terrorists, many of them that were, convicted of murder and, savagery and all this type of stuff, being released, right next to Jerusalem. So I take back all that stuff I said about Jerusalem being safe, okay? Because now they've released thousands of criminals right across the border.
You guys
And
remember?
then there's Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. I mean, we haven't even mentioned them.
No.
They've got an arsenal of about 100,000 rockets.
Right.
But still, let's, I don't know, as the nuns used to say in grade school, let's pray for peace.
And wait for the next October 7th. Do you guys remember Johnny Carson, Karnak the Magnificent, the envelope on the head?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Karnak.
He would read the answer, and then Johnny would give the question. Well, I remember when you said yes or Arafat, just a little light note into this dark topic. He held the envelope to his head, and he said, yes or Arafat. Then he zips open, pulls it out, and he says, describe the sound made when Dolly Parton unhooks her bra.
Marcus, do you have anything?
I think we should go to the next topic.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Government shutdown.
We'll vaporize Hamas next week. Meanwhile, let's go
day 14 or 15. I forget what it is, but it's day 14 or 15.
You know, they didn't need news to destroy completely Germany. What did we firebomb 49 cities? And that got him to turn on Adolf. But anyway, that was another time. And there was no 24-hour news cycle. Marcus, why don't you take us off on the fallout of the government shutdown, which is 2 weeks now, right?
Right. I think the reason why the Democrats are fighting tooth and nail for to add what they want in the bill is that the subsidies for Obamacare is going to end. It's going to end at the end of the year. And the thing is, it's because of the subsidies that is making Obamacare somewhat affordable. Now imagine that goes away and how it would affect the healthcare system, because we're propping up a bad policy. And my take is, if we allow the free market to work, Obamacare in itself would just kind of fall apart. I mean, I like stress test argument. If you have like a modern car going against a Soviet era car like the Trabant or the Volga or the Yugo, no one's going to buy those cars, because the way like the Trabant works, it's like you have to like distill your own fuel to put in the fuel tank. It was just something outrageous. It was totally inefficient. But the concept of subsidizing bad policy, it's always been inherent in this country. But in lieu of that, everything's becoming more unaffordable. We should allow the free market to actually work. I mean, like I said, stress testing argument. If we want to prop up a failing system, it's like subsidizing phone booths. Who's going to use phone booths? Yeah. Or subsidizing a cassette tape industry. No one's going to buy it, but we're just wasting money. You're saying, Carlos?
Or phone books. Please tell me then, as far as to me, Obamacare, and I'm a healthcare practitioner, retired, and thank God it really didn't affect dentistry much, but I saw what it did to my patients and to me and my wife and I. Why this to me, I see Obamacare as the healthcare turd that will not flush. So why don't they just I mean, defund it, it'll croak. But here's the real important question, because this is all political. You guys all know this is all political. What party's voter base will be hurt the worst the longer this thing lasts, and if Obamacare folds? They're trying to scare us with red state, the rural districts. You're going to pay dearly, Republicans. Who do you guys think? Their voters or our voters? Who gets hurt the most if Obamacare folds?
It'll be like the rural poor, which is the South. But my take is that uh, they're estimating that it's going to be like $350 billion, and that's like the short end of it to provide more subsidies. And when Obamacare was first implemented, they thought it was going to cost this much, but it's actually 5 or 10 times as more than they thought it would. But the thing is, we're so ingrained for government to subsidize back back a losing player. We never allowed the free market to actually work itself out. And a good example would be uh, elective surgery, like for LASIX for the eyes. When it first came out, it was like $2,000 per eye or more, $3,000 per eye. But when you allow technology and competition, you could get laser eye surgery for like $300-400 now.
Well, yeah, another point, when Obamacare was being debated, the Congressional Budget Office used as a baseline to score it a projection of 6% GDP growth. I mean, those were China numbers. At that time we were growing at about 2.5.
Right.
So of course the numbers were completely off the wall.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, you guys probably remember better than I do. The CBO came out with some numbers saying this thing's going to cost a fortune, and then they were called into the White House, and they came out a few days later and said, "Yeah, there was some problem with our arithmetic, so it's going to save us money." Yeah, it's been a fiscal disaster. Also,
it's been very popular down here in South Florida, man. I mean, there are still Obamacare billboards all up and down the Palmetto and I-95. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of, lower income folks here in South Florida took advantage of Obamacare. That's for sure.
Well, Obamacare, let's not forget, Obamacare cost. Now, I know I'm blinking up now, 2010 elections. Obama, after 2 years, lost the House. 2 years after that, 4 years after that, he lost the Senate. Here's what Obamacare cost the Democrats from the time Obama took office to the time Trump came in. It cost them the House. It cost them the Senate. It cost them half of their governorships, and it cost them 970 state legislative seats. That's what it cost back then. So far, what I'm hearing, if this thing prolongs, the Republicans are fucked. Am I correct there, or am I wrong?
I think there's an opportunity. It's like was it Rahm Emanuel? Don't let an opportunity go to waste.
Right.
I think there's an opportunity to offer more like free market solutions. Like I think in our very first podcast, I talked about like having a voucher system to actually bring down the cost of healthcare. I'm a product of a voucher system with the GI Bill. The GI Bill helped pay for my education, and university accepted the voucher. Just a very transactional experience. And I also mentioned having like a sin tax, where like for like tobacco industry, maybe half a cent or not even a percent sin tax could actually pay for lung surgeries. For pharmaceuticals, they make hundreds of billions of dollars. They could help pay for offset the cost of pharmaceuticals. So there's opportunities about it, and there's other ways to kind of fix it, like to have more competitive markets with the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, right now we can't buy drugs in Mexico or India or Canada or other parts of the world because we're allowing like Congress to have a managed field where it's only sold domestically. So,
well, Trump just made a deal with Pfizer, which got a lot of hoopla. I know RFK looked like he was doing Drano shots. He was not happy because of the vaccine angle, but supposedly that's going to drastically reduce the price of drugs. I wonder, do we see that? And another thing that I wonder, if it comes down to it, would the Republican Party have the gonads to sit the insurance company down, the insurance industry, and tell them, you guys either control rates or we're gonna have to regulate you, like it or not, even though that would require passage of laws, which they would lobby to hell against. What do you think about that?
I think we allow too much government to interfere with competition. A good example would be COVID. We only had like two plants that handled uh, a baby milk formula, and both of them kind of got shut down. So it demanded a big market, so like families, mothers were trying to buy milk in Canada and Mexico, and what CBP and Border Patrol were doing was seizing it and destroying it. But the main reason why people were not allowed to buy baby milk powder is because of the dairy industry. The dairy industry lobby for Congress to limit competition. And that's my take. A lot of things would be more affordable if we allowed the free market to work.
All right. And at what point do politicians pay a price for interfering with the free market to throw sops to big dairy, big pharma, big insurance, big whatever, fill in the blank?
Well, they get their donations from the
Right.
from the associations and industry. So, anybody want to make a comment on that?
I would just say, and this is just generally in terms of the shutdown and its political repercussions. And I'm going all the way back. We've had so many shutdowns since the original, Gingrich movement in, I think, what was it, 96, 94, 90? The elections were in 94. I don't remember. 95, they did the shutdown. It all depends on who the electorate blames for the shutdown. It has very little to do, unfortunately, with the actual intricacies of what's on the table. And I don't know. You guys may have a better finger on the pulse of this than I do. I don't know who's currently being blamed for not being able to.
It's whoever starts the conversation first, and JD Vance started it, saying we're not going to accept this because we don't want to fund illegal aliens with their health care. So he started a dialogue, and that forced the Democrats to be on the defensive, on the back foot.
Mm-hmm. And, well, and that a lot of it. I mean, I know what the realities of it are. I just can't say what the perceptions are right now.
Well, 95, Newt Gingrich was remember, he was pilloried as a baby. They did these caricatures of him like a baby with a pacifier crying. That was a different information era. That was a time when the left easily.
Well, that's true. They monopolized. Yeah.
This is a messaging war, gentlemen. This is a messaging war. And right now, the Republicans are better at it. We're better at the memes. We're better and we have alternative media that did not exist back then.
No, that's a very good point. And I think as objective as I can be, well, no, I'm not objective at all. But I do think that our speakers right now, our spokespeople, Johnson and Vance, for example, are far more effective. Who have they got? They've got, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. I mean, that's a losing card. I'm sorry. I'll take that matchup all day long.
Charlemagne the God and Stephen A. Smith. Neither one of them have ever been known to be white.
Yeah.
They said, no. Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, they ain't the answer. They ain't the answer. Y'all got to get with them. So that to me speaks volumes.
Yeah, and also the thing with the illegals gets back to Milton Friedman's maxim going back decades. You can have open borders if you want them, and you can have a welfare state if you want it, but you can't have both. And that's, if you want to distill it down, that's what we're discussing now. We're at that crossroads.
Well, my take is there's 12 appropriation bills, and my take is there's some that could easily been approved and funded, so you don't have to have a whole government shutdown. But my other contention is that because this is an opportunity, the government should kind of refocus on how the funding mechanisms, like like for USCIS and the post office, they don't have to worry about shutdowns because they're self-funded. They're through their fees. It's a fee-based service. Or for the post office, they sell stamps and whatnot. But
yeah, they've also figured out. Oh, I sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, but there's other ways to where we can incorporate self-funding, like the national parks, the National Zoo, the Smithsonian. They have millions of people coming in, and they sell their merchandise. They could easily be self-funded, where it doesn't even become a talking point where the parks are shut down because we don't have the people to because you're furloughed.
Mhm.
That should be the case. Like TSA and air traffic controllers. With the airline industry, with the purchasing of tickets and luggage and whatnot, they could be self-funded as well, where you don't have to worry about appropriations, about being part of the appropriation bill, where they could be the possibility of being furloughed or affecting the system. And there's like with CBP, like their overtime, they get it through the duties and customs that are charged. So they make crazy amounts of overtime. So I'm just speaking my point on that.
They've also some ingenious mechanism that I don't know the specifics of, but it sounds like they've found a way to get the Pentagon to scrape together the money to pay our soldiers, seamen and airmen. So that's critical as well.
I just read today that a rich donor, I don't know who he is, he shall remain unnamed, maybe he doesn't want to be named. He said that he will foot the salaries of our military. The other thing, there's another weapon here that the Republicans have in their advantage, and that is, I heard today another figure, 750. Joni Ernst was talking about that earlier today. 750,000 non-essential government workers. To me, almost all government workers are non-essential. So they remember what Trump said: "Be careful what you wish for. The longer you shut it down, the more I grab my chainsaw and chop away those jobs." What do any of you think about that? That is as a cudgel to get the Democrats to concede.
Well, the news about the shutdown, there's going to be a massive firings, but the articles that I looked at today, it's only amounted to like 4,200 so far. That's on the RIF list, or reduction in force list, and they're just mentioning it's only for job titles that are duplicative or inefficient. But my take is, coming as a former federal employee, and as what you alluded to, Carlos, that there's a lot of incompetence, and there should be a focus on like peer review on people, because people think like once you get a federal job, it's an entitlement, and then just you get bad. They should treat it like almost like the market, where if you're a bad performer, you should be fired.
Well, they remove people from the military because there were guys that wanted to walk around in skirts. Why can't they remove people like the two you recently dealt with in CBP?
I don't know. I wasn't up to date on that one.
I'm talking about people that are in positions of power that are incompetent, or that have been vindictive, or they have targeted those uh, below the rank that have abused their power. But just there's a lot that they could cut. that really are not necessary. And by the way, I do not look at CBP, given especially the importance of what they're doing now. I do not look at CBP as useless government employees. I'm talking about entrenched bureaucrats that don't do shit. They have a no-show job or a job that they show up, punch in, and make coffee all day, and then get paid. That's what I'm talking about.
The problem, and again, this is this goes back decades, man. This goes back, this growth of the federal bureaucracy has been going on for decades. Um, Everyone has known that, federal jobs are by and large good, cushy jobs, very hard to get fired from, great retirement benefits, great health care. That's what has basically driven this incredible growth of our nation's capital with, wonderful neighborhoods, a wonderful metro rail system, monuments, parks, byways, highways, you name it, everything that you could possibly want. It's a pretty nice place to live, Washington, D.C. And I remember, my first and about probably my only experience really sort of working for the government was in college. I had a part-time job working for Voice of America, and I remember filling out the paperwork and the HR people trying to encourage me to make a job, make a career out of the government because and they would tell me these things. I was 19, 20 years old. Hey, listen, it's good, steady work. You're gonna have great benefits. You're gonna have a great life. And I was like, thanks, but no thanks. That's not really what I had in mind for me, for my career. But this has been going on for decades, man. And again, it's kind of like, the people that have become dependent on UNRWA, in Gaza, right? It's kind of like now you want to let them know, hey, wait a second, the gravy train's over, and it's if in fact they do start to make major cuts, okay. There's going to be a lot of sad faces in Washington, D.C. There's going to be a lot of businesses that are going to be, a lot of real estate brokers are going to be out of a job. A lot of mortgage brokers, a lot of, professionals, doctors and nurses catering to people with great health benefits and stuff. You're asking our political leaders to basically shoot themselves in the foot because this is what they know. This is their neighborhood, their place, right? So I don't know.
You're asking our side to neutralize an advantage the other side has held over us. I quite disagree with that. I look at it like a leveler. Those people, that utopia, that Washingtonian utopia has fucked up Virginia, has fucked up Maryland, and has spread like a cancer. Right now, if Trump has the opportunity, a union can't save you if they quit your job in a shutdown. And I think this is a great opportunity. Trump, he goes the nuclear option.
Well, look, the good thing is, he's got, he keeps telling people he's going to run in 2028, right? But I think that's just to get under their skin, right? For the Democrats, right? He's got that 2028 sign, Trump 2028 sign. I think he's got a hat on the Resolute desk or something there. But he's got a couple years left to go. He might just go scorched earth and say, screw this, I'll let JD Vance or Marco Rubio bring it back to the center. But meantime, I'm going to go, crazy and close down a lot of stuff. I mean, look, I think I've dreamed of this. I mean, I've been saying for years that, you could get rid of 20% of the federal workforce tomorrow and 99.9% of Americans wouldn't even know they were missing, right?
Correct.
I've always believed that. I think you're starting to see some of that happening. And sure enough, even with a shutdown.
USAID was the beginning, I think.
What's that?
Doge and USAID.
Yeah. But my point is, listen, I mean, it's even in the midst of this shutdown, life for most Americans goes on like normal, right? I mean, yeah, we're hearing these reports, the Coast Guard and, the Park Service and this and that. And, but everybody knows that at the end of the day, they're going to get all their back pay and they'll still be around. And so, yes, it's, and by the way, this is not what it was 10 years ago when there really were Coast Guard personnel that were going months without getting a paycheck and didn't know how they're going to pay their mortgage and stuff. A lot of that's been resolved with legislation, and they've been these carve outs and stuff internally to make sure that most of those folks are in fact protected. But it's just the way it's been for decades. And I think Trump maybe he does. Maybe he goes berserk and starts cutting people right and left, and leaves the problem to be solved by the next guy.
I don't know if you guys remember the 2013 shutdown, but I remember it because we were at the house of some people that we used to do music with, friends from high school and their husband, and they worked for the FAA. So they were getting cut. And I said, no, now you guys are mad about the shutdown because it's affecting you. Remember, you're going to get back pay. However, what happened a year after? The Senate Democrats lost 9 seats. A year after, remember, the Republicans are going to get blamed. Oh, you guys are in big trouble. You're going to get screwed. It's going to cost you politically. A year later, because that was fall of 13, fall of 14, by God, they lose 9 senators. And that flipped the balance of power back to the until 2020, back to Republicans. So I don't think there's any guarantees, despite the so-called conventional wisdom on that.
No.
Yeah, I have no predictions. Yeah, I'm with you, Raul, about. I mean, this is. It's hard to dismantle what FDR began assembling.
Yeah,
almost 100 years ago.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, short of starting a war again with Great Britain.
Yeah. But listen, the one thing that I'm grateful for, when I was saying this stuff, 15, 20 years ago about how you could fire 20% of the federal workforce and nobody would know the difference. I mean, people would look at me as if I was like some sort of a friggin' Martian. Like, what are you talking about? That can't possibly happen, right? And now it's being talked about openly, and it's not the stigma that it once was to talk about that, right? So.
Yeah, well, also, some of our public institutions have not wrapped themselves in glory over the last 4 or 5 years. And what's coming up now, some of these people may not need to get fired. They'll just be sent to prison. So regardless of which party you're in, I think there's less patience with some of the ways that our money's getting wasted, whether it's with lawfare or, various maneuverings that are completely self-interested and not in the interest of the country. It's in the headlines every day now. So, and it doesn't matter which side you're on, really. You have to look at it and say, I can't believe that we're paying for this. So we'll see.
I think Trump is not fucking around, and he's all about. He's not worried about being a lame duck. He wants to get the job done. If he wants to have a legacy, because of all the trials and tribulations being, with the lawfare, being raided, being sued, like in different jurisdictions, trying to get him out of office or prevent him from going to office, being almost assassinated twice. I think he has I don't give a shit attitude about things. Because he's already been pushed against the wall. And number two, about the government shutdown, everything, we have to have context to it. Like when Biden was transitioning out and Trump was coming in, Biden went on a spending spree. Where when Trump came into office, he only had like a few $100 billion in a reserve. Where I don't know if you remember, like, hey, we have to get Doge, we have to do cuts right now. He had to do like some emergency actions to get funding under control, because even the Janet Yellen changed or negotiated interest rates, where during the Trump presidency, either the short term or the long term bond rates we're gonna skyrocket, and that would impact his ability to pay down the debt as well. But I mean, it was a lot of sabotage going around. So I think with the shutdown, it gives, like I said, there's an opportunity to really correct a big ship, and the government itself takes up 40% of the national wealth of this country. Just the government, all the spending, all the expenses, 40% of our wealth.
Why do you guys think that Too Late Powell hasn't been fired? Because that's a cog in this machine as well. That's not helping. The tiny little increment that
He's out on May 15th.
Yeah, his tenure runs out.
His
You know,
tenure,
so-
in
yeah.
another 6 months, he'll be out of there anyway. And I think Trump has kind of figured out he doesn't want to pick a fight with the banking industry by getting rid of him and creating
Yeah.
more chaotic markets than we already have. So
Yeah,
he's calculating the damage will not be so close to the midterms that could fuck up the midterms for the GOP. I hope he's taking that into account.
I just think I agree with Raul on that one. I think it's just more politically expedient to just let the clock run out on him.
Yeah.
He's close enough to the end of his tenure that just.
And he's already doing what Trump wanted him to do, right? I mean, he's finally started cutting rates.
Yeah.
So why? Yeah, he's late to the party, but now he's doing what Trump wanted, and if he continues along that path, Trump hasn't even mentioned his name. I don't think in the last couple months. So I think he's kind of put Powell on the back burner. That's not a top priority right now.
Well,
now it's part of the Nobel Peace Prize. Let's go get that Nobel, right?
He ain't gonna get the Nobel Prize. Trump could bring back Jesus. Trump could cure cancer. Trump could make everything utopia. They're not going to do it. I think the Nobel Committee is as useless as
listen. Maria Corina Machado, the Venezuelan opposition.
Yeah, God bless her.
Dedicated her Nobel to the people of Venezuela and President Donald Trump, right?
Yeah,
cool.
That showed real class. That was really impressive.
Yeah.
It's also, the people of Israel. I mean, they've named a town after him. They love him. So I think, the resistance against him is starting to. It's amplifying with groups like Antifa, of course, because they're just professional subversives, and they're fanatics. But I think among the country, whether people are admitting it or not, the guy's posting a lot of wins.
Yeah, he is. Look, man, and think about how dramatic this has been, right? I mean, a year ago, right? A year ago, Trump was running against Kamala. They had already tried to assassinate him. He was riding a wave, okay? But there was no guarantee yet, that he was going to be elected, right? There were a lot of nervous people out there. I think, people were, and 2 years ago, where were we, right? I mean, 2 years ago, Trump was, in New York fighting for his life, fighting to sort of stay out of jail. Yeah. Letitia James was, crucifying him, and now Letitia James is on the hot seat, right? Look at how things have turned, right?
And now she's being indicted for mortgage fraud.
It's just listen, it's karma, man. It's so beautiful, right?
Yeah.
It's karma.
It's Fannie Willis has been neutered too, if I'm not mistaken, right down in Georgia.
Yeah. So look at James Comey, right? Indicted, right? And the Democrats are up in arms, like, oh, the weaponization. It's like, hey, man, this is what you guys started, And as Barack Obama was fond of saying, elections have consequences, and guess what, the big dog's back in office now, and he's pissing on your fire hydrant, and so get used to it, because it's going to continue for another 3 years, and it may continue for another 8 years after that if J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, shut out the Democrats, which they might very well do. So
Yeah, I mean, looking at the run, J.D. Vance, Greasy Gavin Newsom, who are they going to run? Kamala? Seriously.
no, I don't know. I don't know who they're going to run.
Big Gretch from Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that Fetterman guy. I'm starting to got to like Lurch, man. You know, I was really critical of Lurch, you know, back when he was having his issues and showing up in gym shorts and stuff. But Lurch now has kind of like, you know,
Yeah.
he's redeemed himself in the eyes of many, right? And I think you know, I'm happy to see that apparently he's also overcome, you know, the health issues that he had, right? I mean, he speaks coherently. He doesn't seem to be, you know, stuttering anymore. I mean, he's dressing the part of being a U.S. senator. I mean, the guy's, you know,
His vote still sucks. His voting still sucks. So
well, nobody, you know, listen, what can I tell you?
The Green Democrat, no, Shapiro was the messiah of the left. The more I see Shapiro, the weaker and more pasty and more pallid and more feckless he looks. He does not look like a commanding figure who could take on J.D. Vance or who could take on Rubio or a combination of both.
Mhm.
They've got a weak bench at the moment. But that's still a long way away. And as you guys have pointed out, at the speed the current administration is moving, you know, they're to borrow their own sloganeering, you know, they're getting shit done.
Yeah. We need to hang on to the midterms though, because if we were to lose the House, that would be catastrophic. I think we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon. And you gentlemen have any closing thoughts? Let's go around the clock. Harrison, any closing thoughts?
No, I just again, I'm cautiously optimistic about the situation in Israel. That doesn't mean that I'm not fearful of all the things that could go wrong, but I hope and pray that this time that peace will prevail.
Yeah, and I'm a skeptic, but I hope I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical that the peace will hold, but you know, I want to be proven wrong. You know, I want to be proven wrong. I've spent 50 years of my life, 50 plus years, living in this, you know, global terrorism from the Munich Olympics to today, right? And I think all of us would love to kind of see that as that dark chapter in world history disappear, and that, you know, the era of terrorism becomes a footnote in the history books, and we move on. And there's so much positive stuff to move on to, right? I mean, think about, you know, the technology that's coming our way, you know, the AI revolution, these data centers, you know, nuclear fusion power plants. I mean, you know, once again, we're going to be going under, you know, through this incredible technological change, right? The idea that we're going to run out of oil is kind of irrelevant if we're going to have all these alternate sources of energy, right? If we start bringing jobs back to America, what a difference that will make in this country. The last 2 quarters, the GDP, you know, you're talking about how the Democrats had predicted 6% GDP. Well, guess what?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
it was around 2%. Right now, it's about 4%. It's getting towards 4%. Okay. Now you got to factor in inflation as well, but hey, things are picking up, right? So I think there's a bright future if we can build on the peace accord and just start doing the right things and start putting all this craziness behind us and move on, man.
Absolutely.
just 2 points. I'm kind of curious what Trump's second, third, and fourth years he's going to accomplish. I mean, it's a lot as of October. So, and I'm happy. The second is I have like a movie suggestion for people to watch.
What's that?
It's called Silence. It's on Amazon Prime. Martin Scorsese. Scorsese directed it. It's about 2 Portuguese Jesuit priests going to feudal Japan during the height of Christian persecutions. You know, at one point they had like 300,000 Christians, And then there was a massive purging. They were killing them outright. And the reason why these two Jesuit priests came is because their teacher, who a Jesuit, was in Japan, and there were rumors that he became an apostate. And so when they came to Japan, they were in hiding. They encountered Japanese who were so devoted to Christianity that they were particularly moved by it. And eventually they got caught. And it's not, they were willing to deal with torture on themselves, but just to bear witness where these Japanese Christians were being tortured on account of them. I mean, you were talking about like the Inquisitor behaving like the devil, talking to them like, "Hey, this could all end if you renounce God." So, I mean, it was just it's a powerful movie, just to watch.
That's with Adam Driver, right?
Driver and Andy Garfield.
Yeah, it's a little
Right.
movie.
Spider-Man.
Okay.
That movie.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia entry right now. It looks really interesting, man. I mean, that's
No, it is. We saw it years ago. I should check it out again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, as you can see below there, like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here. It's time we wrap things up here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to our panel, and we will see you next episode. Good night.
sayonara.